In the early 90s, Nintendo set out on a seemingly impossible mission to produce a follow-up to the groundbreaking Super Mario Bros. 3 on their new 16-bit console, the Super Nintendo. In retrospect, that may have been reaching for the stars. However, the end product is one that we all know so well. It is stitched within nearly every Nintendo fanboy's hearts as a top contender for one of the greatest adventures this Italian plumber has starred in. If you are watching this and don't share that opinion, well, you either haven't played the game yourself, or you're just a wee bit foolish, my friend. Fun power-ups, excellent level design, creative bosses, the introduction of Yoshi, a timeless art style, and an iconic soundtrack are all the go-to reasons one would spit out to convey the greatness that has laid before us for the past 30 years. All of that is cool and all, but none of those things are actually the best part of this game. I know that may be a wild thing to say, but just hold on one moment. An aspect that perhaps could be subconsciously appreciated during a joyful romp of this certified banger that deserves the highest praise a video essay can give it is without a doubt the immersive, brilliant, genius, and every other catchy adjective in the book world Super Mario World is set in.
Yoshi!
The Scrimblow Bimblow, the lovable Scrunko. Such a specimen that has been captivating us gamers for decades now. Being the poster boys for the entire genre of platformers, there are certain elements that they pride themselves in. One of the most important is their ability to bring forth captivating and creative worlds throughout their many adventures. Just the sheer sight of one of these goofballs sends your nostalgic senses into overdrive, harkening back to locations that you could only dream of traversing alongside them. However, what if I said that most of your favorite childhood outings have terrible worlds?
Bruh.
Alright, to avoid a harsh generalization on series I haven't played yet, let me hone in on the most platformy series of them all, Mario, which is indeed the perfect example for my accusation. What, am I trying to say that Mario games suck or something? No, not at all. In fact, they often act as the golden standard for other series to try and emulate. So how could I even attempt to call Mario Worlds garbage? World 1-1, Bomb-On Battlefield, Pipe Maze, Luncheon Kingdom, Gusty Garden Galaxy, and Mario Zone, among a laundry list of others, are all amazing, game-defining locations. So, the issue? Well, all of those areas are great, but let's take a step back and view the worlds of these games. I know the terminology used can be a bit confusing for what I'm hitting at, but all of those places that I listed are just fragments of the overall adventure. Individual levels that, as a collective with all the others, make up the majority of the game. What I want to look at instead is the substance that glues all of these places together. The overarching setting these pieces are placed in, and most importantly, how the game manages to blend the two together. In way simpler terms, what I'm describing is commonly known as the hub world, or whatever you call the gateway to the game's actual levels. Although this isn't necessarily purely judging a game's world based on its hub world, but rather the combination of the complete setting and how they work together as a single package in unison. Now, there's many different ways to approach crafting a game's world, so there's no objectively correct method, more so it depends on what you value for your game. So, for the rest of this video, when I seem to be roasting a certain game, remember it is only through the islands of wanting that greater world present in regards to my own desires. In many cases, the overall game can still be a near masterpiece even with having a void for whatever I'm talking about right now. Regardless of how I look at it, this desire of a quality world may be a slept-on concept for a lot of fans of the platforming genre, due to more attention, understandably so, going towards the real meat of the games, which again is the collection of levels throughout. Kinda confusing so far, right? Well, Mario's ventures in the third dimension can be a good set of examples to lay the groundwork to justify why exactly I hate Mario or something. So let's take a look. Mario Odyssey truly lives up to its title by being an eventful, adventurous journey across many memorable kingdoms. The entire game has a theme of the wonderment of globetrotting, but ironically enough, that same globe feels so lifeless and unattached to its own locations that you visit. It's not so much the actual kingdoms being the problem, since the various kooky species and their civilizations work wonders in these individual levels they are introduced in, but rather the issue lies upon the Odyssey itself. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually do get somewhat attached to this little ship over the course of the game, but the way it's implemented brings forth its own set of pros and cons. It has greater focus on snappy transitions with eliminating the common fluff of needing to physically walk towards the entry point of the next level. This sudden pick up and drop off style keeps me invested in the gameplay, great, sure, but not so much in building a relationship with the greater world present, making each kingdom feel remote and not connected outside of these brief glimpses of, Earth. This overview shot of the planet that is visible during subworld selection is more or less a mirage given to try and weld every location across the game together. Despite the efforts of marking each landmark across the world, it doesn't do all that much for me, due to being extremely brief, and outside of the Mushroom and Cap Kingdom, everything blends together, making for quite the bland map, despite the actual locations being creatively charged. A prime example of the individual pieces being memorable but with no meaningful substance I can invest in holding it together. Odyssey's hub world, or rather the lack thereof, isn't necessarily the exact issue, since just having a more intimate one isn't an automatic problem solver. Mario 64's Peach's Castle is one of gaming's most iconic locations that you would for sure see in a 2012 YouTube video titled Top 10 Gaming Hub Worlds in Gaming. Constant new areas and secrets to discover up until the 120th star. As amazing as it is to explore the castle inside and out, it does absolutely nothing to represent a meaningful world in which you collect the majority of the power stars in. The idea of jumping into paintings which hold these entire environments is schwiggity schwag, but much akin to Odyssey, there is a lack of connection between the 15 courses and the castle itself, resulting in each level feeling more or less like a random place you figuratively and literally leap into. A creative idea for sure, but one that limits my ability to grasp onto the larger picture of Mario 64's world. Perhaps Mario's most ambitious outings to date are no saviors to his common floundering of this great world dilemma. Exploring the far reaches of the universe in a giant, or small, spaceship is simply awesome, but let me ask you a question. What does Rosalina's kitchen have to do with a ghostly galaxy? I shall tell you nothing. Again, I want to refocus on the fact that none of these are necessarily bad, just more so what is needed to make the game work efficiently in the way it was built around. It makes total sense that in order to reach the end of the universe that you need a spaceship vessel of sorts to get you there. But it's through these countless galaxy pit stops that I lose sight of just what kind of world lies beyond Mario's homeland. Certainly a design choice that fits well with the galaxy's narrative and purpose, but it's not one that I can grow attached to, for better and worse. Ironically enough, the most contentious 3D Mario game without a doubt is the shining example of having that fantastic world present. Mario Sunshine is not even home to my favorite 3D Mario hub world, but no one can deny the life that Shine excels through this island's many locations. It is in these individual levels that we get a more believable picture of the entirety of the setting, Isle Delfino, which feeds into its main beacon of Delfino Plaza. There's no need of solely relying on a single graphic to do that job for us. With each passing level, it feels as though we get a glimpse into another part of this same island we've been on since the beginning, as opposed to going to another seemingly random sand galaxy far off into the space realm of, World 5. Here we see the hub world help lift up the subworlds and vice versa, resulting in a tangible world being built along with each step of the journey. Despite its mediocrity in a ton of aspects, because it has a lot of focus on its world, there is a particular love for this game that is somehow both undeniable and almost unquantifiable. It would take a lot of copium to get me to say Sunshine is an overall better game than, say, Galaxy 1, but there is a part of me that finds it more invested in Sunshine, to the point where I would rather sit through an objectively worse gameplay experience just to feel the embrace of that rare sighting of an actual world in a Mario game. A rare sighting indeed. Let me introduce the not-so-zany landscape of 2D Mario. Perhaps you could best call it Mario in his purest form. It was his humble beginnings all throughout the 80s that still is the first thing that pops up in a lot of people's heads when you mention the name Mario. Although, despite the familiarity, the long line of 2D games have had it a bit rough in some sense. Despite nearly always outselling its 3D console counterparts, the 2D titles have an aura of simpleness to them. They don't quite have that same girth and grit the 3D games have that really jumps out and demands your full attention. When we think of the grandest of Mario adventures, I'm sure many of our minds immediately jump towards 64, Odyssey, or Galaxy, leaving his big old bucket of 2D titles to the wayside. Maybe it's simply because of the dimensional difference between the two, but I will propose the alternative reason being the absolutely atrocious handling of nearly all of Mario's 2D worlds. A bold claim, I know, but when you start to peel back what we have to work with over this 30+ year career, it starts to turn a bit sour rather quickly. And then it gets kinda good, and then amazing, and oh wait, sour again. Bringing it all the way back to Super Mario Brothers for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It revolutionized gaming as we know it. It took the arcade style of platforming and actually made it good. Well, the gameplay here is nice and dandy, whatever, but currently I am more mesmerized by all of this. In Super Mario Brothers, the true revolution was that you, the player, finally got to go places. The setting of this long adventure wasn't fully restrained to limitation of hardware any longer. Instead of staring at a single screen for quarters at a time, you get introduced to this crazy world of the Mushroom Kingdom. Wait, the Mushroom what? Yeah, when you boot up the game, there's very little to indicate where you're at, what is the environment around you, or even the general purpose of the game. In fact, it's not until the ending of 1-4, the first castle stage, where you're able to somewhat find out what's going on. I would call this a manual game, meaning that I hope you flip through your instruction booklet before popping in that cartridge. Here we find out the object of the game, which in other words is a juicy lore dump of sorts. One day in the kingdom of the peaceful mushroom people was invaded by the Koopa. They were turned into mere stones, bricks, and even, field horsehair plants. And the Mushroom Kingdom fell into ruin. The only one who can undo the magic spell is the Princess Toadstool, but she is presently in the hands of the great Koopa Turtle King. You are Mario. It's up to you to save the mushroom people from the black magic of the Koopa. Alright, here we get informed of the major characters, the conflict, and most importantly for me, the setting. Now, I do appreciate them laying all of this out in some manner, but the fact that almost none of this is in the actual game itself leaves a big disconnect with the player if they dive into it with no prior knowledge. The only bridge connecting these 32 levels within the game are the brief black stage transition screens that describe them as numbers. I am sorry, but as someone who's more of a letter kind of guy, I can't jive to something like this. By the way, before any wise guys bring it up, I know that Mario Bros. Deluxe, the Game Boy Color enhanced port of the original, makes the levels feel more organic with a shiny new overworld, which is so much cooler than the black screens of the original, but sadly Deluxe kinda sucks, so I will willingly ignore that game. Something I cannot ignore is the absolute bombshell sequel within Super Mario Bros. 3. Simply put, a word that can best describe this game is evolution. In every single capacity, Mario 3 takes what the first two games brought to the table and proceeds to broaden out the scope tenfold. The setting of the story is no different. We are not confined to the same old lands of the Mushroom Kingdom any longer, for we set out into the vast terrain of the Mushroom World instead. Well, dang, what a leap forward, right? The Mushroom World. As that well beyond exhausted word means, the players of 1988 could only expect a massive romp through an ever-expanding scenery compared to the original, and to say that would only be sorta half right. Ironically, Mario 3 follows in the series' footsteps up until this point by being quite the manual game itself. Yet again, we're dropped off directly into the beginning of the game with absolutely no context to be had. World 1, Level 1. So you could call this World 1-1. Huh, sounds familiar. Now, to be clear, I don't necessarily need the game to slap me across the face with what's going on to an exact T as soon as it starts to draw me in. See Donkey Kong Country 1's approach to storytelling and setting as a perfect example that I will not elaborate on any further here. However, I have an issue with the rather lazy style of showcasing this crucial aspect of the game to me thus far. You expect me to get excited and hype over this so-called Mushroom World when I can't even tell what this is? I mean, I don't think it would be far-fetched to assume that this is just the Mushroom Kingdom again. Well, not that you'd even know what a Mushroom Kingdom is by solely playing these games, but anywho. So it's not until you visit the end-of-world castles that you start to piece together the identity of the world around you. It's through these many kingdoms you find yourself running around in that makes up the Mushroom World. But unfortunately, you'd only know them by the names of Worlds 1 through 7, despite them actually having actual names in the credits. Why would you do that? That's just foolish, man. Alright, so I'll stop here for a moment to not come off as nitpicky or cringe, for I need to bring up a good example to have something to bounce off of. I will admit that Mario 3's world offers substantial improvements from Bros 1 and the Lost Levels, but it still falls into many similar pitfalls those games endure. So let me move onwards to the real star of this show. Oh yeah, baby! Super Mario World. As for a game that boldly advertises the world part right there in the title, it was setting itself up for some sort of disappointment if the series past is anything to go off of. Well, the title of this video should clear away any anxiety of that. Okay, so to put everything 2D related up until this point into context, the progression from the Mushroom Kingdom, Mario 1 and 2, to the Mushroom World, Mario 3, made a logical sense. But where do you even go from there? How could you possibly top that? Well, you simply don't, and that is perfectly fine. The truth is, Mario 4 had no choice but to rein in the game's scope if they wanted to avoid rehashing what came before, and whether it was forced upon them or not, this was one of the single best things to happen to the game. Here, through this 16-bit masterpiece, the age-old wise words of "less is more" cannot be any more apparent through this game's place to call home in Dinosaur Land. What the heck is Dinosaur Land? Well, firstly, you'd actually know it by playing the game instead of having to read the manual, but anywho, Dinosaur Land is a location that feels distinctly foreign to Mario for all the right reasons. This is partly due to him being somewhat out of his element from a narrative perspective. This faraway island is just that, a random place out in the middle of who knows where. I mean, the Bros and Peach came here specifically as a getaway vacation sometime after the events of Mario 3. And geez, sorry bud, that won't be the last time your vacation gets cucked. This is quite the juicy setup. As through the NES catalog of games, we've already stretched out the confounds of the Mushroom Lands that are always associated first and foremost with the series. Despite their rather poor showcase of said worlds, it was still all that Mario realistically had to offer, while still being in his own neck of the woods per se. Unless you think he lives in Brooklyn or something. See Donkey Kong Land for that that one. The very premise of Mario World is admirable, as it isn't afraid to scale things back for the sake of crafting something magical. An important lesson that bleeds through every pore of the cartridge is that despite Dinosaur Land being smaller geographically than the entirety of 3's Mushroom World, it still towers over it in nearly every department. You're not saving multiple entire kings and their kingdoms from the brink of collapse, but rather just these weird little colored dinosaur dudes. And Peach too, I guess. It really hits home that just because something is more grandiose does not mean it's automatically better than something smaller in scope. A lesson that conflicts heavily with the very nature of human beings' desire for expansion and growth through every new follow-up. If we only stop to appreciate it for what it is, then we see that this more focused setting is the key to Mario World's success, with having a chance to feel both more intimately connected and organic, which is further held together through a wonderful presentation to the player. As you play through the game, or heck, I would say as soon as you enter foot onto this tropical island, it becomes crystal clear that Dino Land first and foremost is a living and breathing world. Now just don't take my word for it, boy, take a look for yourself. Stepping into Yoshi's Island as the introduction is a near perfect way to start the game off, as there is a genuine sense of livelihood here that's, dare I say, almost unmatched elsewhere. The flowing water alongside the clouds swing back and forth in between the many hills that tower over Mario, yet are completely dwarfed by the humongous mountain, larger than the eye can fully see from down below, all come together as an utter feast for your eyeballs. Yoshi's house immediately establishes that this isn't some soulless terrain. No, an entire civilization occupies this island that you just so happen to stumble upon. Small touches like showing off Yoshi's mailbox, their fireplace with an active flame still crackling away, and a heartfelt note this particular Yoshi left behind while in search of their captured friends sells me on believing that Dinosaur Land is inhabited by real things. A great base to build from that indirectly spills over into the other parts of the island. Heading west into Donut Plains, there's a similarity in cosmetics to Yoshi's Island. However, the hilly region of the southwest mellows out into the softer plains, with a more vertical layout circling this pond that ends up creating the shape that inspires the delicious sounding name of the area. The rigidness of the land's outlines further adds to the realistic quality of the island. There's not a single feeling of cookie cutter design here. Instead, there's a rough edge to it that leaves an impression of it being an unaltered wild domain, which is exactly what it is. This chaotic energy comes to a sudden stop as you burst through the gates leading inside of the mountain to Vanilla Dome. An aura of chilliness runs through the air of this cavern as the main color palette relies solely on shades of blue. It's as if you can feel the damp coldness this cave brings forth. To balance it out, there's constant glowing from the sparkling rocks all across the dome, making for a feeling of pure fascination. With a little, you're brought out onto the Cheese Bridge, which lies high upon the most northern part of the island. A simple area that does its job of connecting us to the eastern portion of Dinosaur Land, while demonstrating the mountain scale through levels among the clouds, making it feel as though one wrong step can send poor Mario plummeting downwards. Winding back down, we quickly get engulfed by the Forest of Illusion. In a world where the hills have eyes, these trees in the densely populated woods give off a completely different vibe from the rest. One of questionable motives as they pierce their wide black eyes straight into Mario, as he wanders aimlessly about this forest of twists and turns. The clouds surrounding the outer edges of the screen bolster the mysterious vibe going about. If you somehow manage to find your way out, there's quite a craggy road ahead of you through Chocolate Island. This marks a distinct new region of the island with its brown environment, rocky pathways, and the exclusive appearance of the not-so-friendly Dino Rhinos. Having Bowser's minions all across the island acts as a constant reminder of the invasion and capturement of the poor Yoshi civilization, and Peach, but bringing more dinosaur-esque enemies back into the frame shows us that this place isn't all rainbows and sunshine. You're at just as much odds with Bowser's goons as you are with your environment around you. Although, here we reach the end of the road. Every part of Dinosaur Land has been searched across and conquered. Not a single pebble left unturned, right? Well, we're still short of a princess and fight with King Koopa himself. But wait, off in the waters across from Chaco Island lies a sunken ship. As you swim through ghosts of adventures past, the sign of a magic ball ends the level and silence fills the air. You're not met back on the hub world with the usual upbeat, happy tune, but rather an intimidating dramatic rumble as the entire island shakes back and forth while a massive structure with the carving of a familiar face rises from the ocean's floor, giving you the gateway to the Valley of Bowser. Unlike everything that's come before it, this wicked place does not feel a part of the same world you've been venturing across up until this point. How could it? You're deep within this demented abyss, with an unnatural pitch-black sky that roars with constant strikes of lightning, which briefly reveals what those yellow eyes swooshing back and forth belong to. The huge castle with a cocky neon sign proudly displaying who owns the place is perched at the end of this treacherous valley, signifying the end. One last fight to restore the balance of this dinosaur-filled land. Yes. Man, as you can hopefully tell, there truly is a lively, albeit distinct feeling to every specific area on this island. A true testament to this is that so many times throughout a playthrough, I tend to forget that there even are multiple subworlds that technically break up Dinosaur Land for the sake of a human being playing a video game and whatnot. The way Yoshi's Island and Donut Plains nearly blend together while still having their own defining features is a fantastic example of glossing over the division of subworlds that fragmentates a ton of adventures. Even when there is a stark difference between back-to-back subworlds, it's okay as there's that central hub world properly connecting the two individual pieces as one, thus still making me feel as though I haven't stumbled into a brand new land, but rather just another segment of this same huge world. As I've largely implied towards already, this is where something like the Mushroom World completely turns me off. It's true that the game is set across many kingdoms, so it's not that far-fetched to assume each one has their own environment to it, but that is exactly where I am disinterested. But wait, didn't I just compliment Dinosaur Land for having a distinct feeling to every area? Well, the problem with the Mushroom World is that each subworld is so vastly different that in combination with the lackluster transition to each preceding one, I am left wondering, oh geez, what theme do we have this time? Oh, water. Cool. I simply label each area as just that one defining word, which sadly puts every individual piece across the game into their own little bubble. Whereas the fragments that make up Dinosaur Land are so much more than just their overall level gimmicks, which, to note, for a lot of these areas, there really isn't one that immediately jumps out at you. There is a stronger focus on believable environmental cohesion as opposed to thematic variety. Sure, Mario World doesn't have any desert or snow levels in the game, but personally, I will gladly give that up to have a more natural world around me. Outside of the surface level thematics of every subworld, there still is the important task of constructing the landscape of the world for the video game itself. Something as simple as a level select screen starts to become moderately complicated when you are tasked with placing down those little dots that signify a new level in conjunction with the world's design. You probably think this may be as simple as can be, but just hold your tongue for 1 second, little baby boy. Walking that fine line between ease of access for the player and still making it feel distinctly non-video gamey is a tough job, I would imagine, but one that needs to be handled with utmost care to fully sell me on my surroundings. Perhaps this could be an artistic touch that goes unnoticed by some, but to me it still leaves a huge impact on my perception of how natural the places around me really are. I know it's an oddly meta kind of way to look about things, but if you stop to think about it, these paths that Mario Mario walks to and from active spots on the overworld gives us a way to contextualize the contents of the levels in respect to that same overworld. The importance of this can be seen with the more unique world gimmicks across the mushroom world that I cannot immediately point out. Even though the thematic of the subworld is interesting, I'm still left unsatisfied as the presentation has a consistent flatness to it, which can be applied to nearly every area of the game, mind you. Call me crazy, but these designs are just boring. There's so little here for me to grab onto with my eyeballs, despite them spamming 50 million cacti across the map. Compare that to the large depth of Yoshi's Island, and the difference between the two is super duper apparent. Also, the grid-like hub world setup within Mario 3 does it no favors, as it makes movement across the land feel so jerky and stiff. It's as if these subworlds' designs are built around the levels, whereas in Mario World, I see quite the opposite, with the levels being placed around a natural feeling layout of the area that constantly changes with each region. An overwhelming sense of artificialness plagues the Mushroom World due to all of this. On the flip side, Dinosaur Land feels as though if Mario World never took place there, it would still exist out there in the Mario universe regardless, just awaiting the day for someone to explore it. You know, concerning everything so far, I'd be dishonest to not say I feel a little guilty of punching down, as of course Mario 3 is originally an NES title versus World's improved hardware of the SNES. You could argue that Dinosaur Land just had more inherent potential due to coming after its predecessors on a better system, and to that I would say, okay fine, I'll give you that. So, just erase everything I mentioned so far from your minds. Although, the sad thing is, even if we fast forward into the new modern age, Dinosaur Land still stands the test of time and reigns supreme above all else. After over an entire decade of scarfing down 3D games, ports, and remasters, 2D Mario fans finally got to come out and rejoice over the hot, new, never-to-be-dragged-out series within New Super Mario Bros. Well, it's actually been over a decade since the first one dropped way back in '06 on the DS. And trust me, Nintendo fans have had plenty of time to offer retrospect on the series, mainly in a not-so-flattering light. Do these games deserve a more fair shake of things? Yeah, probably. I mean, they're plenty fun in their own rights, I guess. But one aspect across the board that I always could not stand, if you can guess it already, was the worlds of these games. They suck so badly, it's not even funny. I'm not even playing around, they are horrendous. Here's World 1 from the original, and here's World 1 from the handheld sequel. Nearly identical. Not to mention how Wii's World 1 isn't so far behind. I love how every single one of these games have almost the same generic subworld themes, and 4 out of the 4 start off with a grass into desert combo, with 3 out of the 4 having grass, desert, and snow within the first half of the game. Oh yeah, we're back to calling these areas by worlds instead of creative names that give them a more sound identity. Grid-like mapping can be seen throughout the series on multiple occasions and is very fun to look at. To sum up in short, the new game's worlds largely take inspiration from the NES, with having isolated, thematic-driven areas that are so bland that it's no wonder that even fans of the games get them mixed up in their heads sometimes. Well, I should say all the games except for one that stands heads and shoulders over the rest. It turns out that someone at Nintendo EAD realized that everyone on the planet with at least an ounce of brain juice has Mario World pegged as their favorite game. So thank golly, by the time the 4th Soup game came around, they took some inspiration from the past by taking a page or two from Dinosaur Land. Here across what I can only presume is the Mushroom Kingdom, we are given a new, fully fledged, interconnected world for the first time in 20 years. In the same vein as Mario World, you're able to traverse from the grassy Acorn Plains all the way to the infernal Peach's Castle, and everything in between in one continuous non-stop trek. This prospect alone makes the overall adventure of New You a much more engaging experience from its peers, to say the least. However, don't let these surface level similarities to Dinosaur Land fool you, for it's this very attempt to craft a more ambitious world that the flaws of the New Soup series truly shows itself in full colors. I feel as though Nintendo hoped that by just making the overworld interconnected that fans would see it, point to it, and say, "Oh wow, that reminds me of that one good game they made back in the past," and not realize that this world is lacking key factors that make it something worthwhile. Now, I could sit here and continue on my Mario 3 rampage of disgust with how this world is lacking any sort of cohesion from going to a scorching desert straight into a snow wonderland, because yeah, that makes sense, right? But no, instead there's an important aspect that I think anyone can agree with is crucial to any sort of world building: the sense of discovery and how the medium allows the individual to perceive it. Daunting, I know, but this is where we get to the good stuff. As someone who's recently taken a dive into the massive world that is One Piece, I've gained a better understanding of the art form of how to carefully pull along the audience by letting them discover the world around them in calculated ways. Now, don't worry, I'm not gonna go off on a completely topically unrelated tangent about anime in a video about Mario, but the principle, as you'll see, remains constant between the two. All the ingredients of a successful world that make up One Piece are there right in front of you. Yet it's the perception of these ingredients that Oda lets the readers taste at a single time that truly gives off a rich sense of everlasting discovery. Despite me constantly playing up the sheer scope of Dinosaur Land, ironically enough, the first in-game glimpse into the island can make for some concern over it being a bit lackluster. However, it's precisely through this first glance that plays into a lead-up of anticipation of just how much of a world is actually around you. A slight subversion of expectation, if you will. Logging into a new file brings you directly to a not so flattering black text box giving you the rundown of what's going on and whatnot. The keywords here being, "This is Dinosaur Land." What, do you mean all of this, or, oh, it must mean all of this, right? Well, there's no real way to fully tell besides reading the manual, but this is 2022, nobody has those anymore. At the very least, we can infer that we're at a place called Yoshi's Island through the naming schemes of the levels around you, and being able to chill out at that very same man's house. Okay, we finally got proper names for the subworlds. A good step up from World 1, I'd say. But I'm trying to bite off a little more here. And so far, coming off the heels of purely isolated subworlds, this fits in with what I'd expect from the Mario series. There is a strong sense of seclusion as the entire island is surrounded by a body of water, making it seem as though it isn't connected to anything else, as if this is all that the mighty Dinosaur Land has to offer for the time being. For the rest of Yoshi's Island, you may keep that concern in your mind, wondering what the next part of the game will bring. Unless you rebel against the obvious, go here to advance the game path and cut towards the left. After a brief skirmish with the technical first level of the game, you start to climb one of Dinosaur Land's famous landmarks, with the towering Kappa Mountain. As Mario makes his way up the long ladder, the screen transitions into a new perspective. The base of the island that we once just stood on shrinks below us as we reach the peak. Here we get both a breathtaking view and insight of what's to come in the near future with an early sneak peek of Donut Plains, the second subworld of the game. Even though it's still out of our reach for now, it truly is immaculate that despite completing only 1/5 of Yoshi's Island thus far, being able to see ensuing endeavors right before your eyes prior to reaching it should get your curiosity bone itching with excitement. It's something you'll keep in mind while plowing through the rest of Yoshi's Island, and the payoff for reaching Donut Plains is that much sweeter for already having a pre-existing connection to it. It doesn't really blindside or feel semi-randomish like every new Mario 3 kingdom or New Soup world pre-U does. Donut Plains being right there makes total sense because, well, why wouldn't it be there? It's just a natural part of the world around me, no questions asked. Also, while we are here at the Yellow Switch Palace, for the first time you're able to hit start on your controller to go into a free roam camera, where you can look all around the outer parts of the island. This ability acts as a nice push and pull between showing the player that this is indeed one huge connected landmass, while not revealing everything it has to offer. A keen eye will notice that castles 3, 5, and 7 are missing from these outer regions. You could probably assume that 2 of those castles are through this door and deep within these woods. But that's exactly my point. This neat little feature shows you so much, but also so little at the same time. It gives you an abundance to daydream about through anticipation of these new parts of the island you're so far away from, while also still having that strong sense of discovery from these more hidden away areas such as the likes of Vanilla Dome, the Forest of Illusion, and especially Valley of Bowser. There is no viewpoint of the end goal. While your journey is certainly marked through these castles, there's still a wonderment of where exactly that dastardly Bowser is hiding away at, making your journey feel more so as an exploration and survival of this foreign land, just as much as it is the classic save the princess shtick. Even within the sneak peeks of the outer parts of Dinosaur Land, what you're able to see still isn't the full picture. You're simply able to see these untouched areas through the eye lens of inexperience. As you make your way all across the island, there's constant little details about the world around you that change, morph, and become clear alongside your journey. This isn't some static place from start to finish, quite on the contrary. There's giant hills that rise up from the ground, new streams of water are rising, pathways of boulders being moved aside. The environment around you is seemingly always subject to change in some ways at any point. This, alongside the combination of unique pathways I talked about earlier, makes for areas that are completely transformed from the time you first enter it and then complete it, giving off a sense of meaningful progression to the player. Like, yeah, it only looks like this because I'm the one who completed it. Without me, it would still look like it was untouched by the hands of man. Anyways, one of my favorite small world building moments is after you beat Ludwig von Koopa, Mario sends his castle soaring into the sky, only for it to come crashing down into this poor hill in the background, leaving a comically sized bandage on its head. Except now, on the overworld map, it still has that bandage for the rest of the game. I don't know, that's just a harmless, dumb, quirky detail that adds a sprinkle more charm into this world. So, does New U's world have anything like this? Well, I gotta admit, New U's opening is quite promising. After an amusing royal kidnapping, Mario and the gang are slung out of the castle, hurtling miles out into the middle of nowhere, crashing into this tree that's kinda sus. We then get a focus shot on Lemmy Koopa's airship heading towards Acorn Plains to occupy that subworld's castle. During this, we get a nice healthy glimpse into how this world is composed through seeing snow, poison, water, and sand themes before reaching the grassy first area of the game, alongside a nice overview pan shot of Acorn Plains before Mario comes back onto the scene. Honestly, this could have kinda worked out. We have an unseeable end goal in mind with knowledge of what's partly to come to get our curiosity schmovin', as well as establishing the interconnectivity of this world. And they completely ruin it through one simple tap of the L button. New U's world doesn't shy away from showing you the goods up front to a most definite fault. As you activate the free roam camera and start to look around, you may get the feeling that you're seeing a little too much. The game has hardly anything to hide, as you're able to see a vast majority of the subworlds with only being locked away from a portion of Soda Jungle, and the end build-up results of Kamek sprinkling his magical farts onto Peach's castle, making it become a complete hellscape by the time you reach it. Wait a minute, Mario World lets you see portions of the map early? Talk about the hypocrisy of mankind.
Hold up, wait a minute.
Like I said, World strikes that perfect balance between showcasing just enough to boast its impressive landscape, while still holding out a ton of details for you to discover in due time. Let's look back at just how much New U actually shows you up front. Every single subworld's major pathways are just slightly faded, waiting for you to come fill it in like it's some coloring book. You're able to clearly see the enemies, power-ups, Yoshis, which Koopalings have domain over each subworld, and just about everything this world has to offer before you even enter into the first level of the game. Well, it's sorta complicated. New U does offer a lot of those same environmental discoveries as World, but they're used slightly differently. There are new elements that sprout up as you move along, however these are majorly just pathway extensions to get from level to level, or to cross subworlds at a more brisk pace. Not so much altering the main formations of any of the subworlds' designs themselves. Pick a place like Sparkling Waters as a prime example. Taking a gander at it from the start of the game versus when you have done everything there is to do in it offers little distinction. The water sprouting up to give you a walkway is a nice touch. So are the mushroom platforms that rise up leading you to Soda Jungle. The line of debris making way for a giant vine level that jumps to rock candy mines is genuinely a wonderful set piece. Nevertheless, the problem with these assets are that they're either used to enter or exit the confounds of Sparkling Waters. Notice how I didn't make mention of anything spectacular going on in the meat and potatoes of the subworld, because there really isn't anything to talk about. As you make your way through this waterland, you follow the faded path to an absolute T. Now, don't get me twisted, Dinosaur Land has faded out pathways as well. But even within those subworlds, there still were discoveries to make past that. Whereas in New U, more or less every subworld follows this design choice. You get what you see when it does the overview pan shot of the area, with maybe a couple of new elements thrown in to make a needed pathway, and possibly some optional overly long connection to another subworld. This focus on jam-packing the world with these pathways connecting the subworlds together make it feel both more conjoined and isolated at the same time. It's honestly really weird and hard to describe. Perhaps it's a byproduct of the clashing of thematics between the subworlds, but I honestly do think this could have worked if there were a stronger importance given to the perception of the world and how they give it to you, which is truly at fault here and dashes the rather high potential this world could have had. Instead of nearly every part of the map being visible from the start, how about taking more cues from that hidden forest within Soda Jungle? Even though it's technically visible from the beginning, the contents inside are left hidden away, resulting in an actual surprise when you see how artistic this spooky forest is. Imagine if this was left out in the open like everything else. The sense of discovery would have been completely dilapidated. I'm no game designer, you know, but what if for, say, Layered Cake Desert, there was some sort of mirage covering the entire subworld, so you couldn't really make out the complete structure of the area until you arrived at it. Also, instead of these statues just laying around already, how about they rise up from an ancient slumber once you beat various levels? What if all of the underwater stages in Sparkling Waters were submerged into the seabed, with going underneath in the hub world revealing a new perspective of sorts? Zooey mama, you see all these wonderful ideas I'm spitting out? I'm sure despite having absolutely no qualifications in game making could make a better game than these guys. That was a joke. The sense of scale in this game is also majorly out of whack. Remember that huge tree in the beginning cutscene? How cool would it have been to start the game off within the bush of that tree? Give the player the choice to either climb upwards to the top to give a better view of the surrounding world, or go downwards through a stage focusing on exiting the tree to move onwards to the rest of Acorn Plains. This would have made for a fine set piece to start the game off and mimic a similar effect to cap a mountain from World. But nope! Here's that giant tree chilling off to the side, looking mighty small all of a sudden. You know, for a subworld supposedly high up in the sky, moraine clouds feels awfully low to the ground, especially when compared to World 5 of Mario Bros. 3, which again was for the NES, which honestly is probably relative to that of a toaster compared to the Wii U. For as much flack I've given that game so far, admittedly it crafted a beautiful transition from the start of this subworld being grounded, alongside a visual indication of clouds bordering the edge of the screen, screen, with featuring a level later on purely dedicated to bridging the passage up to the sky with that very same level still being visible, but just in a microscopic view since, you know, you're super high up in the sky. New U's grand attempt at a sky world? Here's a couple of clouds from the end of Rock Candy Mines, and oh yay, you're already there with being able to see everything around you in the same perspective somehow even though you're in the sky, I guess. Am I alone in this? Is this not just an absolute dog water excuse for a world? For every step forward New U's world takes, it also takes 2 steps back. There's things to enjoy about this world, don't get me wrong, it's just that I feel as though they could have done so much more to make this a memorable, wild ride from start to finish, making it truly live up to the new in its title. But instead, it's more akin to a wet fart. Unpleasant and disappointing. I don't want to sit here and seem like a grouchy, over-analytical white guy on YouTube, but when I compare Dinosaur Land to this rendition of the Mushroom Kingdom, I'm left with no choice. There's simply a much greater focus on world building, sense of discovery, cohesion, and overall charm coming from Mario World that is as clear as day, that truly makes it a special case. Oh yeah, that is all to say before even mentioning the single best defining aspect of Mario World, the icing on this already delicious cake to fully close this discussion. Let me talk about some secrets and how they impact the game. And the world and stuff like that. The thing I've been talking about this whole time. A staple all throughout the Mario Bros. Series that dates back even to the beginnings is the implementation of secrets, primarily coming in the form of alternative exits to levels that will make you scratch your head, wondering how the devs could have hid such a sneaky thing right in front of your eyes. Finding these within the NES games will reap a bountiful reward through a trip to the Warp Zone. A special set of pipes that lets the player skip entire worlds in a moment's notice. Now, I'm sure most people's reaction to finding such a thing would be that of complete amazement. And yeah, I admit, I am guilty of abusing these bad boys myself. I mean, I earned that right by discovering that you have to crouch on this super oddly specific platform for like 7 seconds until you drop behind the scenes to get a hidden whistle. However, as I've gotten a bit older, I've started to realize that, while yes, these warp zones are mondo cool and have their place, the effect they have on the actual world is rather detrimental. Think about it, you're purposefully missing out on large segments of the overall adventure, if not flat out deleting a majority of it to the Shadow Realm just to get that sweet satisfaction of beating the game while only playing about 20% of it. Yeah. As someone whose compulsive collector mentality itch won't be scratched until I uncover everything meaningful a game has to offer, these warp zones are completely off the table. It's a shame since that feeling of genuine excitement runs deep when you discover these secrets, and it's a design choice that becomes much of a trend with future installments inevitably bleeding into the new Soup series. The problematic nature of these major skips can be more accurately visualized within New U, the punching bag of this video it seems like. The aforementioned overly long subworld bridges being the main culprit in this world-building murder mystery. I won't deny the act of finding out the right pathways in the levels to activate these connecting bridges, and seeing them being formed afterwards on the hub world map is a straight shot of dopamine to my veins. But the ability to hop straight from subworld 1 to 5 to 7 just doesn't sit right with me. This is mega cliche to say, although I must. The journey isn't defined by the end result, but rather the steps leading up to it, or something like that. Now, you may be quick to rebuttal with something along the lines of, well, actually, most people won't know about these secrets the first time playing the game. And to that I say, I don't care. It's more so about the design itself rather than if a new player will actually find it or not, because what I think is a much better design is making those secret alternative pathways offer a relatively equal experience, if not more, to that of the normal route, while still giving you that sweet rush of satisfaction from finding out about them. If only there were a 2D Mario game that did that. Oh. Yeah. Yoshi's Island, by many regards, as the first subworld of the game, is fairly vanilla. A standard Mario experience with the mushrooms and fire flowers and these cool new Yoshi dudes and dudettes. It's only when you step foot onto Donut Plains that the game takes a total shift in many regards. Here we get our first encounter with a red dotted level. See, everything in Yoshi's Island was a standard yellow dot, but now it's all red and whatnot. What does this even mean? Oh, okay, nice. You then come across these faded out blocks that you can only wonder what lays atop of them. Alas, surely this is not meant to be quite as of yet, is what any noob would say, but as a god gamer through the almighty cape, you can make your way up there and gaze upon the first keyhole of many to come. A deep sound effect sweeps you off of your feet and off of the screen, resulting in a clear indication of a new path opening up. 3 things to not so quickly note about this. Number 1, that sound effect is really cool. Actually, here, I'll play it again. Number 2, the game establishes the presence and idea of a secret exit to the player in a brilliant way. In a game with a bountiful amount of secrets, it still manages to respect the player's time and efforts by signaling which levels do and do not offer these hidden exits. It keeps the entire system simple, clean, and straight to the point. It's as if the game is challenging you. Like, yeah, this level does indeed have a secret, but are you good enough to actually find it? Just marvelous design that I kinda wish other platformers would take advantage of, especially those that are quote-unquote the best of all time, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Number 3, notice how you didn't get sent off halfway across the map. Oftentimes, rather than not, the reward for scoping out these secrets isn't the ability to skip major portions of the game via some take on a warp zone. If anything, it's the complete opposite. It opens up new pathways for even more levels to play through. Yes, you are technically skipping levels by taking these alternate routes, but the main difference here being that there is always a supplement replacement for those skipped out levels from the normal path. Take the first level of Vanilla Dome, a seemingly harmless venture through a neat little cave, but here lies an important decision the player must make whether they know it or not. Do you go right and take the normal route through the rest of Vanilla Dome? Or do you cut left through the secret exit, which takes you out on top of the highest walkable part of the island, offering up a completely new experience? Regardless, the key detail being that no matter which path you take, it still offers a similar journey's length. The end meetup point from these 2 branching paths is the Twin Bridges Castle. However, from the moment you leave Vanilla Dome 1, you still have a full plate of 6 to 7 levels ahead of you, no matter the path you take. So, instead of missing out on whole chunks of the game, I see this design more as finding a new path to the same goal. A workaround from the conventional route that can reward the player with more insight to Dinosaur Land as a byproduct. One of the most epic moments of the whole game is when you find the secret exit to Donut Secret 1. I know, a secret within a secret. Amazing. You go past the ghost house here, and just before you go down the warp pipe, you're wondering, where is this gonna lead me? Here's a seemingly obvious answer, but if the previous 3 games' warp zones are anything to go off of, it'll probably lead me past the rest of Donut Plains, skipping the entirety of Vanilla Dome, and dump me here at the Twin Bridges pipe. Nope. You get sent to Valley of Bowser. You're only in the second subworld of the game, and you have a chance to get a sneak peek up close and personal at the very end. A reminder that up until this point on a blind playthrough, you have absolutely no idea where Bowser is hiding. So to suddenly come into this area of complete contrast to the happy-go-lucky vibe of the outer hub of Dino Land is a complete surprise. The best part is that you have no way of interacting with Valley of Bowser itself. You can only play through Donut Secret 2, and that's it for now. Of course, besides gawking in awe at what you'll have to eventually tackle in the far future. The preceding warp pipe leads you directly back to Donut Plains, and you continue on your journey not so far off from where you had originally split off from while being completely amazed. This rather instant reward style of these branching pathways, as opposed to some item you collect and hoard over the game, plays nicely into the overall thematics of Mario World and Dinosaur Land, the carefree joys of exploration. Imagine if these secret exits were replaced in large by little gates that required you to pay X amount of dragon coins you've collected in order to open up these new pathways. I think you'd quickly find that it would feel restricting and artificial, as if you're not naturally discovering these other areas, but rather tearing down pointless gatekeeping from the developers, making it feel more like a video game, as weird as that is to say. Thankfully, what we have instead builds upon all of the game's material instead of actively taking parts of it away. Not only are you encouraged to seek out these secrets, but there's no noticeable detrimental cost to the world around you by doing so. Even if you search out each possible new pathway across the game, you'll still be completing levels within every subworld. Not a single beat missed. It's as if this was intentional from the developers that fully expected you to find some of these secrets, and they built the world with that in mind instead of tacking it on as something you need Nintendo power to find out about. Trust me, even if you were raised in a secrets in gaming are the devil household, you would still be hard-pressed trying to ignore them, for the game constantly teases you about their presence. Whether it be warp pipes, faded out pathways, levels you can't normally reach, or parts of the island that seem oddly suspicious. I don't think a single soul who picks up the SNES controller can resist trying to find out more about this dino rampaging island. I say that with utmost confidence because I know that they literally couldn't. The Forest of Illusion, as its name may imply, is all about finding the correct way out via these hidden exits being the only way to proceed from the subworld. The way the game gradually teaches the player about these secrets, only to mandate it later on in the adventure, blends the line between these being optional extras and mandatory checkmarks. To me, it's simply just alternate ways to traverse this big old island. In other words, it's pretty great. Throughout this rambling praise of a video, I think I've finally stretched out everything I can for the sake of demonstrating this world's goodness. Everything except for one last thing I have to talk about that is symbolic with the very mention of this game. A certain twinkling road that resides high above the clouds in the nighttime sky. The Star World. An amalgamation of the very essence of Mario World. The presence of this world is foreshadowed through an honest mention on a pathway that would satisfy even the most curious of cats, through the following astonishing sneak peek. But for those adventurers who kept that message in their minds and pushed a bit further, they gained access to something out of this world. It's through the 5 possible gateways known as Star Roads that you can stand upon this dazzling land that brings forth new levels, alternative transportation across the island, and sneak peeks to those yet unknown. Star World isn't some epic final challenge like other games' secret worlds may hold, but I don't think that's what it was going for. Accessible as early as Donut Plains, this subworld is a treat for those players who fully embrace what the game represents, somehow oddly making a place so out of reach from the rest feel welcomed. Even then, upon completion, there's one final star road that warps the player to absolutely absurdity within the special zone. I have no words here for the wacky shenanigans these stages bring along with them, but the reward for making it through it all is something I can truly appreciate. It sends you back to the beginning of the adventure, Yoshi's house in particular, but with your surroundings looking quite different. The tropical summertime setting has passed on to a cozier fall. Every part of the island sporting a new color scheme, signifying the passage of time. The grass turns brown, the water gets a little lighter, Chaco Mountain gets a bit minty, and the stars get pissed on. This change is the perfect end note to leave off on, because at first this may seem like a weird or disappointing reward, but it's obvious to me that this would be an option within the game. This is because of one small little reason that you may realize by now. And well, that is because Dinosaur Land is indeed, first and foremost, a living and breathing world. Upon reflection, I sort of fear that I came off a little too harsh on every game that wasn't Mario World or Sunshine. Believe it or not, I really do love the Mario series. However, after looking over all of these games, it made me realize the true strength of the series. No matter the setting or game, except New Super Mario Bros. 2, we can always expect an adventure full of inspired locations that are tremendously fun to run around, whether it's gathering stars or reaching flagpoles. It's just that you shouldn't have hope for anything beyond that. The lackluster worlds of the series make me cherish the likes of Dinosaur Land and Isle Delfino that much more. Although, do these types of games actually need well-incorporated worlds at their disposal to work? As I've already kinda said in the video, not really at all. Some of my favorite games of all time, like Banjo-Kazooie and Crash 2, are in the same boat as most Mario games. And even within the Mario series, 64 is debatably my favorite. I realize that what goes into making up a world isn't as cut and dry as I may have made it out to be. It all just depends on what you yourself enjoy. You may think Dinosaur Land is on the boring side, whereas New U's world is exciting. And, well, that's okay if you think that. So my question to you is, does your favorite game, whether it be a Scrimblow, Binblow, or a McRPG guy, have a good world surrounding it? Next time you play it, think about it. I love how the Mario 1 manual says, Mario, the hero of the story, parentheses, maybe. Like, wow, not even the game itself is confident you can complete it. That's pretty funny, actually. But, yeah, whoever wrote this sure is an asshole.